So I thought needed to make another video. This time, it's just, probably more about some other topics of circumstances that happened. And, I was thinking to myself, I'm go through these memory banks at times, and, it bothers me because I can't verify it, even though I'm 100% on it. And I remember this guy, and I think that this is who this guy may have been. When the president looked like he had driven by with his limousine like 100 cars, and I was at the Christopher Columbus Park with like a pyramid, sort of like pyramid, Aztec pyramid looking thing. I was living there for like 3 months. And this is kind of where I found out that my biological father was at Raymond Palomo. And I remember they kind of just, the paramedics came by and they picked me up to New Middle Hospital, for like 3 or 4 days. And then I got out and went back to the park and just did my normal routine, apply for jobs, smoke cigarettes, lay there, wait to have some hope, walk around, and figure out my next travel plans. But while I was there was a guy that showed up out of nowhere, and it looked a lot like this guy. It looked exactly like him, and he had a bottle of liquor, and this guy was like, if I've ever seen anybody in my life that was a drunk, like the way that you would depict them in movies, in old school movies, like back in the old days or in Mexico, where they just carry a bottle of liquor and they drink it every day, and somehow their bodies are so strong that their organs can manage to sustain even at 50 years old. And this guy looked like he came from the dirts of Mexico. And he sat there for like a number of hours, and then he just got up and left. And this guy had this guy looked very rugged from Mexico, cowboy boots, looked like he had been homeless. But this guy looked like he had like a bottle of liquor he was just carrying everywhere and just walking all over the place. And I had a sense that he really wasn't harmful, and he just enjoyed drinking and going about his life. And I kind of get the idea of what he was sort of behaving because of the Mexican culture. And he had a cowboy hat on, and I want to say he had like a missing eye, or his face was paralyzed on one side. And it looked a lot like him. I don't know if it was him, but it looked a lot like him. And speaking of this guy, there's so much out there and whatever. I don't know if it was him and what people are doing around me, but I do remember this also is when I was in the backyard and he was explaining that he had a horse step on his. He said that this is where then he told me he had the story. He goes, he had a marble stuck up in his nose. And he goes, yo tenía un marble un día cuando estaba en niño que me estoró así. And then he gazed over the space in the backyard looking across, just like you're gazing out in the mountains and looking, like thinking about something. And he was thinking about someone that had done something to him. And he looked, and then he kind of just started walking a different, back to the house. And I remember that, but I don't know what any of this meant. And it was his own, how people tend to talk about their own life, and you never know what they're talking about. It's just kind of, we reflect on our past. I think that's what he was doing. Now, I'm not trying to go and feel empathy, and sympathetic for something like this. My brother got fucking raped, and I'm going to have my ass ripped open. But that was what happened. And something that was even more, or not even more, but more I wanted to talk about is when I used to go to Frankie's karate classes. used to go to Frankie's karate classes. The first time that we, got Frankie registered for, for karate, Mr. Miyagi or whoever you want to call him, this guy was like a Taekwondo 10th degree belt. He was like in his late 50s. And he was a Korean. I want to say he was Asian, but he looked Korean. I want to say he was Korean, and he had learned martial arts his whole life. He had all these trophies and stuff and pictures in his office, and you paid monthly to go there, right? And when we were there, I remember my father introduced, like my mom and dad both went in there with Frankie. And I remember he had the door open because there was some activity, the kids and adults were doing some sort of, shuffling, karate stuff. It's not that big of a karate class. And the guy goes and he goes, yeah, this is my wife. And this is what the Asian guy goes. He goes, this is your wife? This is your wife? And he was kind of thinking to himself, because I guess that's what men do when they get very much older and we get wiser and know the natures of what life is that it was almost like saying, because my dad was always kind of giving a message by having such a young woman in his life that it's never too late. I'm still going to enjoy life when I'm 65 years old and get a young wife and start a family. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to have a life. It's more like I'm going to have a life. So I remember the guy behaving, and this guy his facial expressions, and every time I ever saw him and was around him, which wasn't a whole terrible a bunch of times, he wasn't somebody that had a whole lot of expressions on his face. He always seemed to have the same expression, very constant, and like a seafood, or like what do you call them, like Sifus or karate masters, or whatever they call it, teachers, I guess, in martial arts. And but I remember that. I do remember that guy was like, open his eyes and he goes, this is your wife? Like, because my mom was so young, and my dad would look at him, and because people used to always be jaw dropping at my dad because my mom was so young, and my dad would be like, this is where my dad's expression would be like, yeah. This is how he would nod his head, and he, because I remember like Bill, who was another victim of my brother. But before any of this happened, when he had met my mom came, and my dad went to go get us a haircut, and my dad said, yeah, this is my wife. And he goes, this is your wife? Yeah. He was very proud, very happy, and what do you call it, recognitionable, or like like, yeah, I'm still living this life, I'm gonna make a life happen. And sometimes I think to myself that these people know these stories, but they don't, unless they speak up about it. So, there's always these pieces from here and there that I jump back and forth that add more to the puzzle, to what happened, to what this event and this event and this event. But most of it is, I said all the most important parts that I was aware of. And but yeah, I wanted to make a video on it. It's there's all these little things that I still remember and glimpses of. I remember when I thought I saw this guy that had brutally raped my brother at this pyramid looking thing, and at the Christopher Columbus Park, and there was a woman, or like a transgender, that showed up out of nowhere and like stayed there for a few hours and like kneeled, and she had said something about the Bible, that she said, She says you're more likely to be, you know, that the Bible says this, that she said that the Bible says that your brother is more like a reflective image of how you understand life, and that's why you tend to treat your friends better than your own brother sometimes. And that's why. And the way that this individual said this sounded like it did come from the Bible, but it was more put together. I don't know, for those that know what that verse is or that section of the Bible, that's much of the reason why that when we get around our friends, we tend to treat them better than our own brothers, because our brothers tend to pick away at us much more aggressively to fix and help and shape us than our friends are, you know. And because when you're around your friends, you have people that, you know, direct and pick at you. You know, you don't want to hang around with them, and then you cause conflict. So the mutual understanding is very different, as opposed to your brother. You live in the same household and you know you have same parents. The understanding of that is different. But yeah, I thought I'd make a video on that. And you know, there are all these glimpses of sometimes that I remember of, you know, traveling that was very senseless. Like, it's not a lot of fun. I tell you that. It's not party. It's like, what can I make life lessons from this? And is God taking me in these voyages? And I never know what's going to happen. And you know, I never, when I'm going to all these places, which I did for a little short period of time in my early 20s, but I never believe or think that so much of like the signs of the signs of life that God are giving me, and that I need to travel and do this. It was, to me, it was more just adventurous and journey, like adventurous. That's what it was for me, because I just have to keep hope alive, and I have to keep. It's the way that makes me feel content. It's the way that I feel like I'm actually accomplishing more than just, you know, if I can't find a job, if I'm going to be stuck on this unemployment, you know, you're making me shit left and right. You know, for me to just sort of stay put in locations and just wait things out until I find a job. And if it takes too long, okay, I'm going to try a different city. Try a different city somewhere else in the state. I'm going to go look at the mountains. And, you know, that was kind of my sort of prerogative. And you meet these people in so many different places. You know, I'm in Denver, Colorado around this time that happened. And, you know, I walk into this Asian guy's house. And we went to all go see a movie. And it was like a group of friends. It was like, this guy was a Buddhist, but he was nice enough to welcome us in his home. He's Vietnamese. And I remember him reading all his Vietnamese stuff on the internet. It was like, they read up and down as opposed to, you know, the domestic way that we read it here in the U.S. and many other countries, from left to right. And this is where I saw the movie, Mr. Nobody. And I just happened to come across this movie. It's always hard to find a really good movie. Like a movie like Mr. Nobody, or like The Goonies, or like Forrest Gump, or like the movies that really just impact and are just, you know, it's just really good. Films just so well. And I just happened to come across, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll just click on this movie. And we watched it, and it was brilliant. This is where I watched this movie, and the other guy, two guys that were staying there, one was like a pizza delivery guy, I think, one, and there was another guy there, so it was like four of us, and we would take turns just taking showers. And you know, we take a shower, and we end up watching this movie, and then everyone gets glued to it. It's like, oh wow, you know, they're all laying on the floor and sitting on the couch, you know, and watching this movie. And yeah, so I still remember much of it, you know. You know, there were some situations that were very uncomfortable circumstances where, you know, I don't think anything probably made me fear more of prison or, you know, the jailhouse than to just think, oh, I'll just go sleep outside. I don't care. You know, my life is not going to end in there. You know, and I do everything to not let that happen because, you know, especially my circumstances at that time. You know, it was probably leading to that, to this sort of HIV, but I was just sort of ignoring the situation and do the best I can and with taking care of myself. And I recall, recall some of the circumstances, and you know, I remember somebody showed up and gave me a belt at Target. It was a Christmas gift, and I had it for many years until I finally threw it away or broke on me or something. But I had it for several years. And the guy was like flagged me down as I was walking away on Christmas Day. Said, "Hey man," and I didn't have enough money to purchase a belt because I had gone flat broke. And I was like, "Dang, I guess I have to wait until next week." And I was walking this guy. I still remember things like that. And you know, showed up and gave me a belt. He said, "Here man, don't worry, I paid for it." And he looked like a young college student. I said, "You know, thank you." And I really didn't have any money left. You know, I didn't have money because I had bought some socks. I needed a new belt because I think I was going to an interview, and sometimes short. And I was like, well, maybe my unemployment was going to arrive. I think Friday or whatever day it was, and I got to sort it all out before the interview. But yeah, in many of these circumstances, I hope I made the right decisions. Some of it was drastically sort of respect the situation, and some of it was not to get involved too much into that, to, understand that I need to sort of let that be for a moment and not tickle it. And I hope it didn't create more shit, but it could have. Being in Alaska, that was probably the biggest eureka moment. I still remember that. That was, going to Alvarez. What was it? Alvarez. I can't remember what it was. It was something like. I can't remember that. I can't forget. It's past Gakona, not Anchorage, Alaska, but when we got to the other city, Valdez. It was Valdez that we get there. And it was just like Mortal Kombat. You ever seen like the mountains in Mortal Kombat where they like get in a little canoe and they're like, or a little, Asian boat into Mortal Kombat where they have the special fighting rings? It was like that. The mountain, it was just magical. The water had fresh water. It was just beautiful. And we ate at a breakfast diner. And when I get to places like that, it was the first times, but the first thing that thinks in my mind is if I were to get stranded and if these people would run me out, because these people they would never see anybody like me there. Like black hair, Spanish speaking, I look sort of rugged, and those people are there isn't very many people that live in that area, probably like 500 people, and they're all workers, and they all live through several miles and distances from that area, and it's kind of like closed off by gates, and they have these like little restaurants and these sort of native statues. And it was remarkable seeing seals, real seals in nature swimming together. Like I saw a couple of seals playing with each other in the water, and I had never seen anything like that in my life. Like in the natural world, like it was nature just in its course, and breathtaking view. It was unimaginable, just beautiful. Then I leave there, and I think that was like one of my last trips. But like before I even got there is when I went to this sort of treasure hunting deal, and I get on this bike and I rode this bike for like 10 hours. I'm nonstop, like and almost in a full square of entire Anchorage. And I knew I had to save some energy because I still had, to ride a bike for 7 hours. Like I remember leaving like 10 o'clock, anywhere from between, I'd say 9:30 to 10 o'clock is about the time that I left, and went on this bike ride. And by the time I got close to I think it was close to somewhat of the airport, but it was all where all these ships and ports were. And you start walking, I'm thinking, because I still had 2 hours, it's going to take me at least probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to even get back to the house. And that's like a fast paced, non-stop, not taking any breaks. And I'm already pretty tired. And I rode that bike to the ground. I rode that bike pretty. I got his miles worth. I got that. The bike was worth its. The bike was built for it. It's a mountain bike, but rode the bike, got there, and it was great, And I go into this voyage and didn't expect it at all. I didn't expect anything like that. And I walk into this, and I talked about this. I decided I'm going to jump this little gate area, with the chain links, and I, start walking in this padded ground, and I don't know what that means. I'm thinking to myself at first that it was probably like a tractor that softens up the ground, like when a plant seeds. And then I see that it turns to a right, and there's sort of like a circle of, dirt, and like everything's still cluttered in wood, but it's like a circumference circle, like almost like somebody could have been doing some ceremonies there. But you could see where they were probably riding in circles of dirt bikes. Very clean though. It was very neat and clean, the environment. It wasn't and the woods were still pretty dense. And then I start walking, and that's when I look, and it kept on going, and it was pretty magical. That's probably the most magical situation, and for me, it was, that was pretty much it for me. That was it, and the whole ideas of HIV and my age, and time was running out, and didn't know if I was going to have another 10 more years or 5 more years. But it was worth that trip. It was definitely worth that trip. Very, very beautiful. Grass was plush of like full of hair, full of life. And I know that I think I had seen after that trip that I had looked on Google, and you could see how whales had washed up ashore somewhere in that area, because I think it went like for several miles, long miles in that shore, and how it was sort of a cliff, and then it goes into sort of soggy mud, and then sort of into water for miles. I'm not sure if it goes, I think it goes deep into the ocean, but it was just far deep, where even far 20, 30 miles I could still see mountains, and then it just kept on going. And the ideas of risking injury, and thinking, I don't know if I can make it back to the house. I could jump this ramp and be really cool, but if I get injured, that's it. I had no money. This was before disability. I'm stranded. But I never know what's going to happen. I do put the limits to some of the things I did, and some things that I probably should have been more careful that I didn't mean to do. But being athletic and a lot of the things, I don't do some of the crazy extreme stuff that some of these people have done, but I almost fell into the Grand Canyon, and scared a few people, and didn't mean to, because I tripped, and I was like 30 feet from falling straight to the very bottom of the canyon, and I didn't mean that to happen. And I was just taking a look, and then I go to this different part of the canyon, in Grand Canyon in Vegas, and in the middle of nowhere, there was a burnt car. It was a car that was completely burned. It was like a slug bug. Looked like it had been there for 50, 60 years. And it looked like completely rusted and like sort of torched. And I remember some guy, I think he was a tourist as well, told me, he said that they used it in a James Bond movie, or they used it in a movie many, many years ago, and they threw it there. And he said that, yeah, they use it in a movie, in the film, and then they threw it over there and they never picked it up. I don't know what these people knew about, or what he could know. Maybe he was referencing some other things. It probably was. Some of the things that bothered me, that I felt like I couldn't be myself, or I couldn't be as kind to what I would feel my own heritage or people, is when I walk into an Indian tribe and I don't buy anything. And it's always a accommodation to at least buy something from these people. These people need your customer service, and these people need and want to be welcomed with their items. And I remember seeing these like Native American, Indian, Mexican women, like deep rooted, like Aztec, like they're very sweet, very, very sweet people. And I get sort of nervous and I don't buy something from them, and I can tell they kind of want me to, and I'm just taking a look and trying to appreciate everything, but I know that it's against the Bible, it's against Jesus, it's against what these people have sort of done for me for so long. And it's upsetting, because if I buy something and send it to my mother or keep it or whatever, it goes so much against, because it's different. Like, I bought this from the internet, but when I go to an actual Indian tribe, and my father was Native American Indian, and it's very rare. Native American Indians tend to be pretty dark, natural, and my dad was fairly pretty dark as a dark complected, because he's native. Native people in those days, Native American Indians, it's more of an authentic Indian tribe. There's a lot of people out there that claim to be Indian and they don't look Indian. They either look Mexican or they're too light complected. And it's because a lot of the genetics over so many periods of time have been completely wiped out. And, the bloodline gets diluted, and there's not much of authentic tribe Indian. But natural, if you look at all the Indians from back in the day, and the pictures that, early late 1800s, and when photo was available for people, all of them looked very, very dark complected and sort of tribal, and that's what their genetics is. And shoot something in my brain. And that was something that I did, but it felt very, it felt like I was unwelcoming, and I was going to be retaliated. And the way that I could sort of respect that is to not, oh, okay, this is beautiful, and then something happens to me because I wasn't the Jesus deal, and then I get persecuted, and I was a traitor, and then it was this and that. So it was best for me, maybe some other time or another day, but for now, it's not to just take this and then throw this shit away like it was garbage, because guess what? And so then it becomes difficult. Plus, I don't have a home, and this a lot of the situation with me traveling and being broke all the time, you never really get to keep too many souvenirs and not too many items. But it's a pretty difficult situation, because that's what the persecution of that was. So much of that, it was, I had to stay. It's like you have to stay hard all the time, because it contaminates so much of everything of what they're trying to get away with. And there's an underlying thing that they're doing that I don't know yet, and it's very deeply rooted, and I'm likely not to find out. And I know that I have to sort of do this for my family. There's a sort of root to my family because when I see a guy with a baseball cap and he's in the church and he looks like Ken Cooper, and then it's intimidation, and they start training me, and I know it's because I'm young. They want to take advantage of me because I'm very young, and they want to train the brain because then it's for Ken Cooper and Sarah Cooper, just like the guy who was slamming on the Bible telling me, forgive him, and all this other shit. Like, the guy has to come in there and say, calm down, chill, calm down, what are you doing? You know, and, you know, or I'm in the middle of, you know, I'm walking in Alaska, you know, I see a guy charging at me, and it's literally way colder than it is outside, and I'm packing my clothes, and I'm walking to the college and back to the shelter to have lunch, or get some snacks, or put some Hot Pockets at the gas station nearby this homeless shelter, you know, for some protein, you know, get a pizza Hot Pocket, you know, get tasty, warm up a little bit, get some protein, keep working and exercising. And that's the bad thing about the circumstances that I'm in this apartment, is that I'm not walking long distances. I'm not doing any exercise, which is a very different. It's okay for now that I believe now, so that I can sort of focus on myself, and I can focus on getting this GED. Like, I'm not gonna get cluttered. I may play little games here and there on my phone, you know, watch interviews and stuff, but that's my primary focus, is just the simple, get this GED, get this GED, get this GED. Keep trying, just get this GED while I'm here. Just chill, see what it feels like, you know, have my body for long periods of time, chill. But I don't like the fact that I'm not doing all this walking and exercise, because it's not healthy. Even though, I eat extremely healthy, which so much, cooking and stuff, I'm not able to, I'm not exercise, smoke a lot of cigarettes, and hopefully maybe one day soon I can completely stop the addiction. It's not just the addiction, the stress, and so many other factors that play into it, but at least I don't drink. At least I don't do anything else. Smoke a lot of cigarettes, but at least I eat extremely healthy for now. And every once in a while, that's why I get like sauces, because it gives me just a little bit of a taste of the sauce. It's not like I get to use the sauces on a lavish dish, like you're supposed to. It allows me sort of have the company of sort of having, some different stuff, and different things, because I eat a lot of the same things a lot of the same time, all the time. But I was eating when I was homeless, and I was going to Subway. I mean, that's all I did, is eat Subway sandwiches. I was always eating this, the chicken, the turkey breast, the cheapest, meal, but it's delicious, Every time that I could, to just always thinking about vitamins, the vitamins my body needs. My body, because I'm walking and I got the bread that I need in my body, how filling in my stomach. Always like that, because I'm always thinking for the longevity of an exercise that my body's always moving, picking up a backpack. And, me walking, and I still remember so well being in Seattle and daydreaming as I would walk into these, they had these, it was near the ports where they had this big ship that would come in every morning, and, people, there would be, 100 people, not 100, it would be, 300 people all walking, unloading to go to work. And they would all get on this boat, because I guess they stopped by the other ports, so these little islands and stuff. And then people get on this and then go all the way down to downtown to go to work in the morning. And it's 6 in the morning. And, I'd be 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, and I'd be walking near the ports, and I'd see these, really expensive restaurants, but they look expensive to me. And I knew they work, because seafood isn't particularly very cheap. And you'd see these dining, and these maybe a couple going on a date, eating at a restaurant, and I would go into these, daydreaming of not losing my life in youth anymore. That something would turn up, and it didn't. It never did. I'm 41 years old now. It never did. And it's a lot more impacting, because I feel like I'm not allowed to complain about it. I wasn't supposed to. and it devours the quality of my life and how I always lived before. Some of the things felt so deep when I would see this, and in this sort of restaurant candlelight dinners, very quiet and peaceful, pretty expensive, and something that I was never going to experience in my youth. I got a lot of gray hair, and it's never too late, but to have that completely taken away from me, never again, was very hurtful. Homeless, and you feel the aches and pains all the time. You sleep on concrete. I'm carrying a backpack. I take a break, smoke a cigarette, I walk up these stairs, and it's great to see all the artwork and exhibits and stuff like that just throughout the entire city. You see groups of people doing ghost tours and stuff, and ancient old places. But I experienced it all alone. Especially at that time, I don't think I was posting really anything on the internet, and you see a lot of bad. I was at the Bread of Life at that church, and there'd be a guy that looked like he was very disoriented, and I think he said he was in the service. He was like some blonde-haired guy, and he was just like this, and he was just like, looked really lost. I don't know if he was, what do you call it, PTSD, I think with PTSD, I think it's postpartum depression or whatever. And he says, do you know where this, and this? And he was asking me something very simple, like he was just like lost, or he was looking for something. And and I felt bad. And there's all these people that are walking in, and I think to myself, it's like, and always thinking to myself, I have to protect myself, but I help whenever I can, very quick, but I have to be careful not to engage too much, because I have to look out for myself. And it's not that I don't want, like, I'm homeless living in a backpack. It's very much formal homelessness style of living. You figure out what's useful and what can't be useful. And you start chipping away at all the small. I'm still learning. I got these laundry soap sheets now, which I wish I would have known before, because in that way I don't have to carry a bottle or plan to buy laundry soap. Now I can just put that with some of my paperwork, or easier and much more compact in my backpack, and I have plenty to last me for a long time. I get a water bottle at a gas station, wash my clothes, my undergarments and socks, these, so much of it was spent, and, I honestly, as much as it voyage and struggles, and it took so much sacrifice to even just to get a couple of pictures and content of my existence, I still rather would have liked to have had long periods of time where I could build model ships and build gifts. I really would have liked to have done that before. I didn't figure out I could build these model ships until I finally got to Barre, Vermont a couple of years ago, and I started building these models. Like, this is great, something that has some validity to it, so that I could send to my family. That, because when I send a picture and I just give a call, it seems like it's just not enough. I knew that they're living in this house, or probably living in this house, and they're living their life, and whatever it is, I'm not in the picture of it. But if something were to happen to me, at least you have something to say that I had an existence in, because my life isn't really mattering very much. I have to put value to it, and I'm not building a family. I don't have a dog. I'm just depressed at times. People are telling me things like when I'm in Denver, Colorado, I'm doing community service. This is what happens to me. I go and do community service, and I'm homeless, and the list of places that I'm homeless all the time, and it's just unbelievable. Like, people have nobody knows what this type of home you have. You're cardiovascular, and your body has to be in shape to do what I'm doing. And I'm pretty somewhat young, but you have to be in incredible shape to do what I'm doing, and very disciplined, very disciplined to take care and maintain your body. You know what shoes you need to buy to protect your feet, keep you mobile, keep sort of things learning and kind of going, even at very minimal ways. And I remember having to do community service, and I was upset when they, because I applied for food stamps, and they would not give me food stamps. They gave me like $30, and I just couldn't believe this. I was like, you're giving me $30, and I get like $600 of money for unemployment. I'm sleeping outside. And to even get unemployment, to even get food stamps, you know what they make me do? I get food stamps. I have to go to a class for like 2 hours a day. For 2 hours a day, there's like 3 or 4 black guys, black teacher, 1 white guy, and we just kind of do this little shuffle thing and whatever. And I participate like everyone else. And I have to be there like once a week or like twice a week. And it's like 3 hours in like 2 hours, and and I had to, this is just to even get food stamps. This food stamps are supposed to be free. They're not free for me. Then on the weekends, I have to put in at least, 20 hours? 20 hours or something like that a week. And they send me to a thrift store. I go to this thrift store, and when I get to this thrift store, I'm working in the back. We're throwing stuff on a big truck. We're all wearing like blue shirts, pants. Then we start going through a conveying belt, and we start separating all the things, and we're just working all. I'm there for 6-7 hours working, and it's labor work. And I was like complaining to people, it's like, this is like a full-time job. This isn't charity work. It's like, this is supposed to be like, we're doing charity work for people, but we're not, I'm having to work for my food stamps. This is like doing a job. Food stamps are supposed to be free from the state if you meet a certain quota of the financial money you're getting, and I'm sleeping outside already. And I try to maintain my cleanness, and I go to work for 6 hours to 7 hours at a job site on Saturday and Sunday to complete my 20 hours a week to even get the $200 of food stamps. I don't even know if it was $200 and I think it was like $150, but to even get the food stamps. And then I go to work, and then I'm like sleeping outside, and like I remember I get to finally go into the more comfortable area, which is like air conditioning and whatnot, inside the thrift store, and people are just lining up donating items all day, and just people are just coming by donating just whatever junk they don't want, and they just give it, and we separate what's useful for people to use. Anyway, I'm in the front and going through clothes, and I have to, like, I don't know what it is, I have to pull certain types of clothes out that aren't good. And this guy looks like he's probably about in his early 60s, late 50s, sort of tall. And he just comes by and speaks to me, and like you can tell, he just shows that up out of nowhere. And there's a lady like 2 aisles down behind me. There's not overcrowded at all. It's not gnarly at all. It's pretty mellow, the entire store. And this lady kind of goes to me after I talk to this guy, and he just seems to kind of, as he's going through the clothes, like trying to engage maybe in a conversation. He's like 1 aisle over. And he talks about this guy, and he says that there was a Marine that saved like 10 people. He says, yeah, there's a Marine. I don't know who he was. I know how life is sometimes. And he goes, I know of a story of a Marine. When I was young, he saved 10 people, and then he died very shortly. And he didn't get to live. But he was responsible. He saved 10, like, other people's lives. And it was, I don't know, I can't remember if it was Marines, but he was a Marine, and I don't know can't remember the exact story, but he saved like 10 people and their lives, and then he died or no, he went through his life for many years and ended up, I think he was homeless, and nobody ever helped him. He never got rewarded to what he had done in life. He never got rewarded. And this guy says, yeah, I know how it is. This guy saved so many people, and he goes, he never got rewarded in life for it. He never did. And it was a very short conversation, 5-minute conversation. And he was in the store for maybe 30 minutes. And he left, or he was getting on his way out, or he was like kind of moving toward the door, a couple of aisles down. This lady behind me goes, yeah, you see that guy? He's gay, or some shit like that. I'm like, what? And I don't even know why this person is telling me this. And they play these psychological games, and I don't know what they're doing or what they're trying to tell me. And I don't even speak to this person often. And but that was the situation with that. And there are all these things that sometimes people would show up, and I don't know why they show up, what the circumstances. This guy that looked like Frankie, the guy that raped Frankie and held my mom hostage, looks like just like him, and he walks into, and it's not him, but they get a look-alike to go in there. And you just never know what's going to happen. And I always was by myself, always. Like, I believe in God, but there's never anybody that I go to. There isn't like, a friend to tell a story. I call it crisis line. I make usually crazy videos, but it's all alone. Listening to music, bored, all these things, and my life I know is dwindling away, and it dwindled away. And I knew that was sort of just becoming the end of the situation, and so, it's hard to understand that, accepting at that time that my life, youth at that part from 40, 20 years old, was never going to have another chance again. At this point, it's just like, this is pretty much it. They're going to keep doing this, and they did. They kept on doing it, and my life never moved any direction in the sense that it would have played out if I had not been HIV positive. They didn't want to tell me because of the entire United States and world and all these different things that was going on. But that's a very hard punishment when you're going through, a disease and homelessness for so long, and working, and I knew that I was losing my youth. It was just wandering around, but I tried to make the best of it. And I understood more of why my mother the way that she was. Because when you're poor like that and uneducated, your resources of survival are so much more different than somebody like Sarah Cooper or Ken Cooper with a $100,000 bank account. With no education, and you're brutally raped repeatedly and all these things, why my mother's like that. And it's not because she wants to, and she's still pushing so hard. You had no choice. You have absolutely no choice. That's the only way of life that is going to be for your life, because nobody wants to help you, and these people are very selfish and guttering, and you have to throw and dump the kids away. Anything remains. They're still doing it to this very day, and this doesn't happen to normal families ever. But that's the story, and that's the way it went. I'll make some other videos and talk about some other things.